talking about, but trying to tell a mom right now, hey, it's time to go on a vacation, they're going to look at you like, what you talking about? We got soccer, we got gymnastics, we have dance, we have, you fill in the blank, tennis, I mean, football practice.
Yep.
No, what are you saying?
Yep.
And then don't talk to a basketball
Well,
mom.
we gotta plan. I gotta plan the whole year. I
Right.
gotta look at the school calendar. I gotta look at the calendar of everything else, like, and what you're gonna miss. So yeah, you
All the
can't
things.
do that.
All the things.
So introducing Megan Hankins Maldonado. I'm making sure I'm saying that right.
You got it.
Yes, yes. And therapist, but also a therapist that really works with, within sports. So what is the title that you give yourself in terms of that outside of therapist? What do you do?
So I'm a licensed therapist, marriage and family therapist, but I'm also an executive coach to athletes and coaches. I'm a mental skills coach, because I think that a lot of athletes sometimes don't have like diagnosable issues, but really performance potential issues, or just dealing with how to go about maybe different conversations with coaches or with parents or whatever. So they don't necessarily need therapy, but it is really it's helpful to me having this therapeutic background to help kids understand different things within themselves, but coaching them. And to be honest with you, my therapeutic model is really a coaching model. I was a women's basketball player in college. I coached women's basketball for 15 years from Division 1 all the way down to high school. I was a head coach, an assistant coach, a volunteer, a director of operations. I did laundry. I mean, you name it, I did it. I did all the things. I was like a mother away from like their own mothers, right? And I was, especially at the college level, you lightweight are helping raise them to be women, right? And helping them to grow into who they want to be and who they are. I think coaching, I think that's where sometimes maybe parents or people outside of athletics don't really understand of like the actual coaching of the basketball was like 10 to 20%. 80% of it is really like the managing the day-to-day, the travel, I'm a travel agent, I'm a therapist, I'm a school counselor, I'm a nutritionist, I'm a, making sure you get to your classes. It's a lot. It's very demanding. So I've done all the things when it comes to athletics and now transitioned into helping outside of it. But it's been really helpful because I think athletes and coaches really want somebody who gets it. Like they don't want to have to explain the commitment level, right? Because there's a lot of, people in the therapeutic world that might say, well, you need to take a break. And they're going to look at you like, what are you talking about? I'm in season. You talking about taking a break? That's not a thing. And sometimes the sport is really helping that kid to get out of their own way. Sometimes it depends. Like, is the sport causing the anxiety or the depression? Or is the sport helping them escape that thought process? And so I think about us as therapists, especially if you've played or you've coached, you understand. But then also coaches are not a very trusting group, right? Like they really want to just keep what happens and keep it inside. And so being able to say to a coach, like, I see you, I've been you, I understand. There's not a lot you have to explain to me about, regardless of the sport, of what you do, and really trying to support people. So I think it's trying to put a name and a face to, like, I'm out here and like this is what it, and I'm here to help. And there's a lot of people I think out there for athletes in particular, but there are not a lot of people out there saying, hey, I'm here to help you, coach, be better. Not in like what you teach, but in how you take care of yourself and what you go through on a day-to-day basis, whether it be high school, college, pros. It's, I think the higher it goes, but we're also seeing an influx of people coaching youth sports and really having issue at that level, right? We can't we're having a tough time with referees. I actually work with referees as well, like trying to have referees come and play because of whatever's going on, and it's an ecosystem. We've got parents, we've got athletes, and we've got coaches.
It's an ecosystem.
Right. And I think about, or like, for all of us therapists, think about it from the family systems perspective. If you have the athlete at the core, and then you've got parents, you've got coaches, right? And thinking about everybody's got to do their part. And if one ecosystem isn't doing their part, then how does that affect the kid? How does that affect the athlete? Exactly. And so I bring that model to a lot of different universities, a lot of different what am I thinking of different like when I work with the referee associations, that neighbor, because they're also a part of an ecosystem or a part of a bigger system outside of the athlete. And again, if we're not doing our part, then what are we teaching? And we're all teachers to these children, right? Our parents are always the first teacher, but I think about who outside of that is influencing our kids to potentially have a positive experience in athletics. And so we're seeing that again at the youth age, where it's negatively affecting our kids. And there are a lot of people outside of that, coaches, parents, referees, that we need to get it together and really understanding our part so that we can change, so that more referees, more coaches can come in, like, that are qualified and good enough to do these things, to do them and feel safe enough that to be there for these athletes. Because again, if we can have a game, but if we don't got referees and we don't have coaches, then the game doesn't go.
I know. And I love that you brought up like that ecosystem model, where that the athlete, whether we're talking about like a youth athlete in middle school or high school or even in college, sports, and all the way up to even in the pros, because we do know that parents also are playing roles in that. So if we're looking at that athlete, and then we're looking at the parent, and then we have the coaches, we have the referees, we have all of that. What challenges or roles, I guess, are you seeing with parents in terms of like how they are interacting with coaches, and like any problems that you're seeing that are happening with the dynamics of that parent between the athlete and then like the coach? That makes sense.
It's a lot of sense. I think that I think in the smaller, like in the younger elementary, middle school ages, right, you have a lot of parents that either are the coach, and so there's that piece where they have a lot more influence, right? It's where we go into high school, where there becomes a power struggle, right? Where there's a parent that feels like their kid should be playing, and they make that known very quickly, right? Depending again, and that feels like a lot of pressure to a coach, and they're not allowed to coach potentially, right? And I'm going to like the extremes. We're also seeing that there's parents that get really upset with referees, and they get very verbal and potentially get very verbally abusive, verbally assaultive, right? And so thinking about, it's not a safe environment. And so we've seen, on social media and in the news that some referees have been attacked in games, where parents feel like it's okay to come out of the stands and put their hands on somebody because they don't like a call, or put their hands on a kid. And to me, I mean, there's been article after article about referees leaving the game and games, regardless of sport, because they don't feel safe. And a lot of that has to do with parents. And I think parents have to look at themselves. And I'm a parent, so I'm speaking from experience of like, we have to allow these coaches to coach.
Okay.
Right? We have to allow them. And if you don't like the coach, you got to think about, what don't you like? Like, is it that they're holding your kid accountable and you don't like that? Well, I mean, again, like, what's going to happen? I think about sports as such a good precursor to what's going to be like in life. And I had a very good coach, very good assistant coach that I played for, was like, so if I don't demand that you're here on time, and on time is late. So practice is at 8:00 in the morning. We were warming up at 7:45. 7:45 is the time that you need to be there. Before that, you better go to the bathroom. You better get your hair done. You better get your ankles taped, whatever you need to get done, because 7:45 is when we like warm up to then when we start at 8:00. Well, what job? You can't be like coming in at like 7:59 and then hoping to God that you clock in on time. Like, that's not real. And you're like, oh, but I got to go to the bathroom. And no, you start work at 8. You should have thought about all of that so many minutes ago, before you even got here. So I think about sports is such a good teacher, but I think we have to allow coaches
Mm-hmm.
teach. Now, I will say there are some bad coaches out there that that don't really take care of, the athlete. So I get it too, right? Like in every situation there are bad apples, right? But there are a lot more good than there are bad. And I
Yeah.
think about, at what point do we say, is my child being physically or mentally harmed by this person? No.
Okay.
Are they holding the line? Are they holding them accountable? Yes. Okay. So then we got to think about, what don't you like? The fact that they're not playing. Your child, and a good coach will explain to a kid. And I used to do this as a coach. I would have a meeting preseason, during season, after season. And I
Mm-hmm.
would tell the parents, if your kid is not playing, your child knows why.
Yeah.
This is in
Yeah.
high school. This is in high school. My kids
That's
knew why they were playing.
communication. That's communication too, like making sure that you are clear on your communication of why this is happening.
Right, no doubt. But then in college, you're an adult. I put that in air quotes because, again, you're walking with baby legs as an adult, right? So we understand they're still smelling like Similac as they're walking through life as as an adult in college. But technically, a coach doesn't really have to explain to a parent why their kid isn't playing. They need to explain to that athlete, and the athlete needs to look at themselves and say, you know what? I'm not doing the things that coach is asking me to do, and I need to fix those things. And I was that athlete. I remember getting that conversation, Megan, you're not in shape enough. And basketball is a sport that you got to be somewhat in shape. You can't just be thinking around like, oh yeah, well I can do this and do that. I'm like, yeah, but 2 trips down the floor and you're done. I got to sub you out. So I think about, like, it's taking accountability for, what do I have control over, and thinking about every ecosystem that affects that athlete.
Yeah.
The athlete has responsibilities. Coaches, referees have responsibilities, and parents have all responsibilities of, like, what can I do to change the experience that my athlete is having in this sport, negatively or positively, right? Like sometimes I've been around where parents potentially are too vocal and don't allow the kid to be coached by the parent.
Yeah.
I mean, be coached by the coach. And it's like, what,
I know.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's tough. Like, I think for me and my husband, we're both former athletes. We're both former coaches. It's something we're going to have to very much work on as
Yeah.
our children get older, especially if they play basketball, of like, we have to just be quiet, and we just need to let them work. I saw this really good something on social media about, like, this guy talking about, like, if we as parents and coaches are constantly, like, giving feedback to the athlete, they will never figure it out. And then translate that to life. How
Yeah.
many young people are in life are just like, I don't know what to do. Oh, somebody fix it. And then somebody's like, well, figure it out. And they're like, what do you mean? Like,
No one taught them how to
no one taught
figure
them.
it out. Yeah.
Right. Right. So I think about, like, if we're doing it at every stage, where we do it in school, if we do it in sports, if we do it at home, we're not giving our kids the tools to figure it out. And when they leave the nest, we as parents are wanting to believe that we've given them all the tools so that when they get in these type of situations, they're going to figure it out. And so I think if we can, as parents, the older we get, give them more tools and say, okay, again, appropriate. What point do you think you could step back? And every kid is different. Like, my son is very independent and he wants more independence. And I'm like, okay, but you're 7. You're not walking home from the bus stop. Like, I'm still picking you up. But can you get yourself up and ready without mommy coming in
Yeah.
to get you up? Yes, you can. Can I get you an alarm clock to get that going? Yes. And, like, let's reward that behavior.
Yeah.
Again, because that's something he's going to use for the rest of his life, right? School, college, going to work. Like, he's got to understand, like, these are all the things that need to get done. And then when you get all that done, you can do what you want.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's, like, I call it, like, supervised independence. Like,
I like that.
We're giving them independence, but it's supervised.
Yes.
So, like, something we do is, like, yeah, I may not have my little one, like, go walk to the bus stop alone, but, like, maybe there are times where I can drive, and then I'm driving and I'm, like, kind of laying back and I let her go walk on her own so I can still see, or I'm walking a little bit farther away. Or, like you said, they're getting ready and you're looking from afar and you're seeing what's going on rather than, like, being on their shoulder, like, what are you doing? you're
Right.
still giving them some independence. And I think that goes with values. And that's something that I talk a lot about with parents is like, and I'm hearing from you is like, what values could like an athlete really learn in the household that they could translate into the court or into their space? Because I think that that's like important. If they learn their values, you know, a lot of times things that whatever that parent wants, like integrity or honesty, can they translate that onto the court in some ways?
Sure.
Um,
Or vice versa, right? Like we have a thing where at home, I preach this, and I think my husband does too, about like we don't give up. We don't quit.
yeah.
Right. Like, and I'm a big person about commitment. If I say I'm gonna do something, like that's my word.
Hmm.
Right. And my what I say and what I do, I would like them to match up. Now, am I perfect? No, no one is perfect. If somebody can find me a perfect person, please let me know. But until then, right, I'm not perfect, but I would hope that a lot of the times my words and my actions meet. And
Yeah.
so I want them to understand that, because that will translate everywhere. Right.
Yeah.
So again, I think about like not quitting, staying committed, understanding that it's going to be hard. You're not going to know how to do these things. And guess what? It's okay. There's no expectation for you to know. And if a teacher or a coach is putting that expectation on you, okay, we got to think about what do we do with that? Because we're not going to always have the best coach or the best teacher or the best boss or whatever.
Mhm.
What do you do instead? And so trying to think about like, okay, so this is something you don't have control over. Cool. What do you have control over in an incontrollable situation? So I think about having those conversations at home, but also having it double down like in school, in sport, at home,
Mhm.
and thinking about what are, and again, I think it's parents really picking and choosing which ones are the ones they want to hammer home the most,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Because you can't hit them all.
You
You
know,
can't hit
I
them all.
always say like do three.
Right,
Like your brain cannot really handle any more than three to
right.
prioritize. And then you're like you said, you're gonna recycle them in all different types of situations. So if it's commitment, you're gonna be doing commitment in like 10 different ways.
Sure. And like there's so many different ways that looks, or like being, for me, the other thing for me is like being a good person. How does that look? It looks like kids that aren't like us, kids that maybe don't are not maybe as good athletically as us.
Yeah.
And not like, haha, you can't. That's not what we do. What
Yeah.
can we do, right? If you're really good at something, what we need to teach, we need to help, right? We can't laugh, right? So I think about, for me, those two things translates in everything that my children do, but most importantly through sport. And I think that that's why I love sports. Sports are such a great teacher. I think that's why a lot of employers like athletes, right? Because they're adaptable, they
Yeah.
they are committed. That's the
Yeah.
biggest thing, right? They want commitment.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's always super important. Of We have things as parents that are really important, but what outside of us can really hammer all of that home? And I think I haven't found anything other than sports and maybe extracurricular activities.
Dance
Yes,
is
that's where I was going next. Yeah,
that's the well, dance or theater. Like that was
yes,
the other thing because we had to, and we were 12-hour days. We were like dancing, doing a show, but it still is like it's still a difference in the type of commitment and how much you're doing. I was listening to you and I'm like, oh, we're giving all these great tips for our parents. Though I will probably say that I'm not sure, but one parent is watching this and they're like, yeah, this is nice and all, but I have so many hats that I am wearing during my day.
preach.
I am like working, our parents are working, trying to tend to the household, food and dinner, that's like enough in itself, like figuring out what we're gonna eat.
Yep.
And then now I have to like take my kid to, all these extracurriculars and to, you know, if they're traveling basketball, like how do I do all of those things? And then how do I then even still just like take care of myself and my own wellness? So what would you say to that parent who was like, I want to do this for my child, but I have all these things, all these hats that I'm wearing on a daily basis?
Sure. The first thing I would say is I see you, I am you.
Okay.
It's it's but I have to say being a coach, a basketball coach has probably prepared me for this, but I think it's more demanding because it's your child, right? It's your
Mhm.
kids, and it's a different, you have a different stake in it. So I would say that this is very difficult. Is it unachievable? No. But I think about maybe what I'm learning is that like the generation before me, I don't know how much wellness was pushed as far as like women, right? I don't know, like I can't remember seeing my grandparents going out there to the gym. I'm just being honest. Like I love my grandparents, but I don't remember them going to the gym. Like Megan, I'll be back. We're going to the gym. That's not a thing.
No,
Like I
not
think,
my parents.
or
I'm
my
talking
parents. Like
about
right, so I think about that was not something I grew up with. Now our generation, or I'll speak for my generation, I'm in my 40s. I think about like that is something that is what that we do. We're either in a gym, at a class, we're walking, we're doing all these things to stay healthy. And so I think about I think there's a societal norm that we as women have been shown and taught of like this is what the expectation is. And then
Mhm.
when we don't meet that, when we start to compare ourselves to that expectation, we think we're failing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you're not failing. This is your own race. You're not racing. My son has these pair of shorts on the back of them. It says you versus you. And I think about
Mm.
it's us versus us, right? I don't got to do it how you do it, Michelle. Like I got to do it how it works for me, right? So like for instance, like if you go to your like kids football practice, do you just have to sit there and watch it, or can you walk and watch?
True.
Right? Right?
That's
Is there a workout spot where you drop your kids off and can you go and just get a quick workout in? Is
yep.
it somewhere where you can bring, if you have little ones, can you bring the little one with you? Like,
Yep.
is that a thing? Okay, maybe that's not a thing. Okay,
Yeah.
my
I
aunt.
the other day I dropped mine off to gymnastics, and I it was it's like 5 minutes from our house. I finished the meal that I was cooking, and I meal plan, because food for us is like really important. If we can get a really good meal in, like my daughter's behavior is so much better. So
Sure.
it's just something simple as like I finished the meal and then I came back to go get her. So
Right.
like, yeah.
But even like, okay, so some of us, me, I'm not a cook. I mean, I can cook. I'm just not. That's not my thing. It's just not my thing. And it's something like, can you outsource? Do you have the means to outsource someone who can cook for you and bring it to the home? I saw somebody else on social media talking about they go to Texas, what is it, Texas Roadhouse for
Yeah.
food,
Yeah.
and they get their meals for the week. I was like, that's genius. Like, and it's not bad food, right? Like your chicken, you got your starch, your protein, your vegetable. Like I'm just like, huh. It just has to work for you. And I think it's getting out of this box that I think we as women put ourselves in because society puts us in this box. And I'm like, it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be a box. It could be an octagon, it could be a circle, it could be nothing. And it just
True.
needs to fit what works for your family, but more importantly, what works for you. Like the
Yeah.
best investment I have made for me, because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a mom, I'm a wife,
Mhm.
all the things, like those things, just those three things, like take up a lot of time on top of being a friend, a
Mhm.
daughter, a sister, right? All the other things, right? But the best investment I have made is hiring someone to come clean my house.
Yes.
It is I cannot tell you when she leaves.
You're like,
Oh my God. It is the best feeling ever. She comes every 2 weeks. I wish I could afford to have her every week, but I can't. But every 2 weeks, I can feel myself having goosebumps now. It is the best feeling because it just feels like, okay, like that's just one less thing off my list of making sure that this home is together, or clothes are folded and put away. Like, I mean, it's just having an extra me. And it's just
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. The next thing I'm working on is outsourcing our food because that's the other source of stress. Like when
Yeah.
my husband texts me, he's like, what's for dinner? And I'm in the middle of a session. I'm like,
Oh
I have no clue, bro. Like I wasn't. I'm literally lucky if I shove a couple of Cheez-Its in my mouth in between clients. I mean, I'm sure lots of therapists can relate to that, but that's not healthy either. So it's also thinking about what day can you meal plan? And if you can't meal plan, can you outsource that so that you can get a healthy meal in you? Because I'm sure you're a better therapist, like you were talking about with your daughter, is that she's probably a better kid. We're better people if we eat a better meal.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Just try to think outside the box. It does not have to be anybody else's race but you. It's you versus you. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to work. Who cares though? Who doesn't like it either? Like
we have to get out of that. I think and I think we see it so much on social media. I think people are scrolling and they're seeing the mom with the cute house and they're seeing all these things and they're like, oh, I want that. And it's like, but that may not fit what you're doing on a daily basis like that. And then, again, that's also only a little like reel. It's a 30-second reel,
right?
Because we have not seen the rest of the lady's house.
Right. Her kitchen looks amazing, right? But you don't know what her bathroom looks like. You don't know what her kids' rooms look like. Like the other thing too is that what I have tried to do a better job of following moms that are in my age group.
Yes.
Right. Like I can't keep up with I can't keep up with 20-year-olds. I just can't. Like I want the 40 somethings and the 50 somethings. That I have young kids too. Both my kids are under 10. So I'm an older mom in these younger mom spaces. And I'm just like, yo, where are these moms at? Like, can we relate? Can we hang out? Like, because right. So I just think about I think it's understanding who you're going to follow, right? Especially even with image and things like that, it gets really tricky. And thinking about I can't lose weight like I did in my 20s.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn this whole new body and it's really getting on my nerves, just being totally, completely transparent of I stopped eating something in my 30s and 20s. I'm like, boom, there goes 10 pounds. Not now. It's like, no, we're holding on for dear life for these pounds to come off. And I'm like, this is frustrating. So I think about it's just being kind to yourself. And especially with what you take in with social media too, of comparison is the thief of joy.
It really is.
It is. Just enjoy what you have and change what you can. And if you can't, then it's like, okay, well, what can I do? I'm a big proponent of we can sit here and we can cry about or complain about what we don't have. Mm-hmm. We can't. But I'm a big proponent of I'm only going to, as a therapist, I'm only going to allow my clients to do that for so long. And then I'm like, okay, now what? What are we going to do about it? Because again, I know this is the issue, but now what is the plan of how are we going to execute it? So if it's dinner, okay, what's your plan? Do you like to cook? Do you not like to cook? If you like to cook, then maybe Sunday's the day you cook or prep. So that it's all, if you don't like to cook, where can you outsource? Is that something financially you can do? If you can't, do you want to look into how you can make more money so that you can outsource it? Right. I'm all about, and I'm a very solution focused model, brief therapy model. And I think for athletes and coaches, they don't want to talk about, they don't have time to talk, to go through deep emotion. They want how do I do this? This is what's wrong, Megan, help me fix it. Okay. But you got to be real ready for what's going to come back at you, because sometimes people aren't always Megan, you a little too real. And I'm like, well,
yeah, but I think in the space with athletes, I think with coaches, they're used to that with their coaches.
Right.
They're used to that direct response. So it's good that you provide that, because I think that aligns with what they're getting on the court, on the field, at the same time. So, I mean, you have dropped so many gems, and there's a lot of reminders, even for myself, as a parent. So can you tell everybody, where we can find you?
Sure.
Do you have anything coming up? So tell us that.
Yeah. So you can find me on my website. It's www.meganhankins, HANKINS. Megan is with no H, MEGAN.com. And everything's there. My phone number, 650-268 4382. If you're in the state of California and you're looking for therapy, I'm your girl, especially if you're an athlete or a coach. But if you're wanting coaching, that is also like I can work all around the world. And love to work with your athlete or you or yourself as a parent, because sometimes sometimes helping parents understand some of this stuff is really needed, but also coaches as well. I don't have anything coming up. I'm hoping to in the new year have some cool YouTubes and working on my social media. It is a labor of love that I'm working on with that. But Michelle, I really appreciate you bringing me on. I think it's so important. Moms feeling supported, especially moms that are dealing with kids in sports, and that their health is so important, mental and physical health, and that you just got to get it in where you fit in. And I think the last nugget I want to give is that as a former athlete, and maybe some moms can relate to this, is that we're used to doing 2 hours of work, or 2 hours of working out, and feeling like, oh, I really got it in. What I'm learning as a 40-something-year-old mom, former athlete, is that 30 minutes is okay. 15 minutes is okay. If it's like if you can get a real hard workout, or even if you just walked for 30 to 45 minutes, I'm learning that that's okay at 40. At 20, when I was playing sports, no, it was 2 hours and it was every day and I could eat what I want, do what I want. 40, that's not the case. And I think it's just, you got to adapt, right? I'm in the season of, okay, I'm not 30 and I'm not 20, I'm 40. So now what does that look like? How do I adapt? And so I think if you can become adaptable, then we're winning. We're winning in this game of life. So
I love that. I love that. I will be posting all of your links too. And
I'm on Instagram. Sorry, the Rec Center, REC, R.E.C. Center. My bad.
But I will put all the links on there so anyone can easily just, click. And thank you for your wisdom. And all right. So I'm gonna focus on me.
That's right. Let's go. Let's get it.